So it is Sunday, June 12th, and I just got finished watching Microsoft's Xbox and Bethesda showcase for 2022, which had quite a bit of hype around it because, as we know, E3 for this year was unfortunately canceled again. Both the in-person event and the digital attempt that they were telling us they were going to do, they ended up canceling it. And as everyone has been talking about the past few weeks, and as I have also been talking about on this channel, that means we started to wonder what people would do in place of E3. Now, of course, most importantly for me and my channel, and probably for most of you watching this, that really includes Nintendo. What was Nintendo going to do in place of E3? And we, of course, don't yet know the answer to that, but even though we're going to focus on Nintendo and the possible Nintendo Direct we're all expecting, I actually wanted to wait until after I saw Microsoft's show for Xbox and Bethesda and whatnot to kind of get a full picture of what they brought to the table. We saw Jeff Keighley's Summer Games Fest happen a couple days ago as well, which was fine for what it was. And I wanted to both gauge other people's reactions to Microsoft's show as well as my own reactions, my own interpretation, and then really understand what I'm hoping to see from Nintendo in response, and I use air quotes, in response to what Microsoft brought to the show, as well as the other developers that showed up at Jeff Keighley's show. Now, of course, this does bring us back to a bit of the conversation we've already been having on this channel over the past 2 weeks, and again, like I said, pretty much everyone else has been having, both on Twitter and on their own YouTube channels and all over the place, and that is, will we even see Nintendo hold a Nintendo Direct in the month of June, in the standard E3 window that we normally see, that we've now seen Microsoft and other companies fill the void of? Would we not see Nintendo do the same thing? And as I've already said, I absolutely expect Nintendo to hold some kind of Summer Direct showcase, and more than anything, I do expect it in the month of June. I mean, how could we not expect that? But now that Microsoft's show is done, we still have not seen or heard Nintendo confirm anything. And so everyone's eyes are laser focused on this upcoming week. There's been a lot of discussion and predictions on if Nintendo is going to do it, and some people think that they are going to do it. Many other people are saying that they don't expect Nintendo to do it. So it's a very interesting thing that we're seeing here. So here's something I want to say that kind of helps kick some of these ideas off in my brain. Like I said, Microsoft Showcase just finished, and I gotta be real with you, I actually thought it was a pretty good show. It wasn't amazing, it didn't knock my socks off, but I've long since moved beyond needing every trailer and every games presentation showcase to quote-unquote knock my socks off, to otherwise see it as objectively good or fine or even great. And because of that, when I look at the show and what I just saw, I'm like, it was a good show. It was well-paced, there was a ton of content, not a lot of filler, tons of gameplay, which we are not used to seeing from Microsoft, and it also had a couple of big games and big reveals that were very specific to my tastes, actually very exciting, and so I thought it was a pretty decent show, and I even tweeted about it. I'd give it a very solid B, which to me is honestly on par with some of my favorite Nintendo Directs I've ever seen. A B is a good score, but it's not an amazing score. And so that's how I felt about it. But it should be noted that across the board, I'm seeing a lot of negativity, both from some of my friends and fellow YouTubers, as well as just the general conversation. Other people who are even diehard Xbox fans, a lot of people thought it was mediocre or even pretty bad. So opinions are across the board. I think they're skewing more negative than they are positive. But again, since this is my conversation and comparing what Microsoft did to what I hope to see Nintendo do, I just want to let you guys know that I actually thought it was a pretty good show. I gave it a B. And so how does this feed into my expectations or thoughts about what Nintendo may or may not be doing for Nintendo Direct, if they even do one this month? Well, again, I'll remind you, I do think they're going to do one this month. I want to believe that it is going to happen this upcoming week. Some folks who I know, who tend to be in the know, seem to think that it's not going to happen this week. I myself don't actually know anything on the scheduling, any behind the scenes info on it myself, and I haven't reached out to any of my buddies to just try to get their info because I try to not always do that. So I don't know. I wanted to think it was going to happen this week. Some people think maybe not. But what I do personally believe is that it will happen at bare minimum in the month of June, right? I think it's going to happen this week. Or this month, I should say. And so now that I've seen Xbox's show and I thought it was pretty strong, and we're seeing a lot of big developers and big franchises and big companies bring some really solid games to the table. Microsoft themselves showed off a ton of Starfield. They showed off Diablo 4. They showed off Redfall. They showed off Silksong before Nintendo had a chance to bring it back into the conversation, which is crazy. Still no date on that game, which is really tragic, but it was nice to see it again. And so I'm like, yo, they brought some great games, some awesome looking titles, very large, high profile games, and a ton of gameplay for those games. And so, yeah, I kind of feel like if Nintendo is going to show their hand for this year, I feel like now has to be the time in a summer E3 Nintendo Direct. Now, in my last conversation about a summer Direct, which was about a week or so ago, I spent enough time talking to you about what to expect or what to predict in the show, and honestly, everyone has been doing that to death. How many times can we all say the same stuff over again? We're going to see Zelda, we're going to see Pokemon, we're going to see Mario, we're going to see whatever the case, blah, 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 Splatoon, Xenoblade, Bayonetta, yada, yada. You know, things I think are possible too. I'm not saying I don't necessarily agree with any of those. I've shared my own predictions, and we're all kind of saying the same thing. Like, yeah, I think we're going to see or hear from Zelda in some way, shape, or form at the show. That, to me, seems almost for sure a shoo-in. We're going to get an update about Splatoon and Xenoblade and all these things, and I do hope to see Bayonetta show up at the show. But I don't think this is about predicting the Nintendo Direct. This is about where Nintendo finds themselves compared to the competition, and also halfway through the year of 2022, and understanding what else they can talk to us about the back half of 2022, and maybe even the first half of 2023. Given that this is the summer E3 month, I feel like they would miss a huge opportunity and potentially damage themselves, at least for a while, if they didn't address us in some way, shape, or form about some of their big titles for the next year. The only thing I do want to say, as a bit more of a close to hard prediction here, does have to do with Metroid. And I mentioned Metroid in my last video about the Nintendo Direct as well, but I want to kind of come back to that real quick because I don't know what it is, but after seeing Microsoft show, I feel even more strongly than I did beforehand in that last video, for example, that we are going to hear from Metroid in their next Nintendo Direct, whether it's June, July, August, or even if it's next year. I mean, forget about the when for a second, and let's just talk about the what would be in it. I do want to reiterate that I really feel like it's time for Metroid. And I don't know why Xbox's show even is giving me this feeling, because you know, why would it? Like, it's not like Metroid is going to be talked about in that show. It's not about that. I think it's something to the effect of just the grand scope and scale of what they showed in that show. And again, it wasn't perfect, but there were so many games. There was so much gameplay. And, you know, they presented it well in a concise and entertaining format, I thought. And I just feel like one of the things Nintendo needs to do to grab major attention and headlines isn't just showing gameplay and a title for Breath of the Wild 2, even though that would probably still be the biggest story. I think they need something else beyond that. And I really feel like showing Metroid Prime 4 really would be the thing that if Nintendo wanted to say, here's the biggest megaton we're going to drop in the entirety of 2022, and if it's, I've said this for a year and I'm going to say it again now, if it's 30 seconds of Metroid Prime 4 gameplay, and if it looks as badass as we expect it to be, that 30 seconds in a June Nintendo Direct, even if they show gameplay and a title for Breath of the Wild 2, I think that 30 seconds, if it's awesome, it's going to be the biggest thing that they share in 2022. Again, I don't think Prime 4 is going to come out in 2022, but if they give us a tease that includes some gameplay and it just looks amazing, everyone's going to be talking about it. And that gets me excited because Metroid's my favorite franchise, and it's never been the biggest franchise, but coming off of the hype and the success of Dread, and now the hype starts to build more for a Metroid Prime trilogy on Switch and a Metroid Prime 4 reveal, I don't know, man. I can't justify it more than just to tell you it's a gut feeling as a lifelong Metroid fan and a Nintendo fan and a game fan. I just feel like we're on the cusp of a big Metroid announcement, a big Metroid reveal. Of course, Prime 4 would almost for sure be at the center of that. I feel like this, summer direct we expect them to have whenever it happens is going to be when they're going to show some major hands and they're going to play some major cards. And so, you know what? As a Metroid dork, I'm just going to throw my hype out there and just throw caution to the wind, share it with you guys, maybe get you guys hyped along with me and say, it just feels like we're really on the cusp of a big Metroid announcement, and I'm hoping it's going to be Prime 4, and I'm hoping it's going to be this month. So I know that's a big Metroid tangent that really wasn't supposed to be the focus of this video, but it's just top of mind for me right now because, duh, Metroid is like what I do, right? At least as far as gaming. Like, I'm always thinking about it and I'm so anxious for it. So I think to just wrap this up here, I just want to say, coming off of Microsoft's show, a lot of people didn't like it, and I get that. Because I overall thought it was a really solid show, I think it kind of raised the ante and raised the bar for what we would hope to see Nintendo do. Sony is a weird X factor because no one knows what they're doing anymore with when they do state of plays or presentations or whatever. And they don't do E3. They haven't for a couple of years now, but Nintendo still does. And so with all of these companies, you know, Games Fest, Microsoft, Bethesda, Devolver Digital, Capcom, all filling the E3 void this week and this month, I'm ready for Nintendo to do the same. I think it's important for Nintendo to do the same. I'd be curious to see if you guys agree with me or not. I feel like you will because we're all Nintendo fans and game fans, right? So we feel like it's time for Nintendo to show us something big. You know, they've gotten a couple of big games out this year. We already know about Xenoblade and Splatoon coming out soon. What about Bayonetta, Zelda, Metroid, you know, and another big surprise game that we haven't heard about yet? This is the time, man. And so I guess that's it. I guess that's how I feel. And I really wanted to gush about my Metroid thing for a minute. I might make a separate video about that after the announcement of the next Direct, even though I might only have 24 hours to do so. I will actually want to talk more about Metroid at that time, if and when Nintendo confirms this Direct. So that's kind of where I stand on things. That's what I think coming out of the Xbox show. One of the few people that liked it, but I did like it. And so how do you guys feel? What did you think about Xbox's show? What do you think about if and when Nintendo's going to do a Direct? What do you expect? My Metroid theories, what do you think about that? Am I crazy, or do you think there's something to it? And I think that's it for now. So with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I will catch you next time on another video. Bye-bye.